What time is it? It's time for another every other Wednesday.
All right,
Pressing good, never finished. Right.
I'm sorry, but I haven't heard any music.
Oh, is it time for the music? All right. Maestro?
What time is it? It's time for another.
It cut out.
Yeah, it was horrible.
didn't hear it.
Sometimes does
It
that.
was-
I'm sorry. But I love to think about our audience bopping their heads along with us as the music is going.
You know, I can see Frederick doing that. So,
By the way,
Yeah.
just so we're clear, it's like gravity. You can't not do it. Even
Yeah.
if you don't believe in it, you actually automatically.
Yeah.
exactly.
Frederick is saying it's great to be busy again. I would second that motion. Yeah, thank you very much. Glad.
All right. I got to keep you guys in line.
I know.
Richard, let's go.
Somebody has to. Somebody has to. So today we have a number of topics that we want to talk about, but it's all around kind of the general theme of some of the things that we're hearing about with respect to organizational culture. And we just want to get a conversation going, maybe an argument even. I don't know. So the first one that we wanted to talk about, and I don't want to be rigid about this, but the first one that we want to talk about is flexibility. And so the topic was kind of put as flex scheduling, schedules. I want us to broaden that out a little bit. And in the whole conversation that continues to go on, I'm a little surprised it is still continuing on, about organizations saying, okay, are we going to have people come back to the office all the time, some of the time, none of the time, all of that kind of stuff? Listen, I think we know what the answer is on that. We know that right now workers are in the driver's seat, and there's just so much data that says the majority, not all, the majority of workers want some flexibility. And I'm going to put it that way rather than saying want to work from home. And I've looked at this and talked with people, and I'm firmly convinced that it's the flexibility that is attractive, and work from home can be one of those. But what if you can't work from home? Are there ways that you can provide flexibility for your organization even without that option? What do you guys think?
Well, first of all, I hate when you're so flexible that you change the topic without telling us. So,
Oh, wait a
I
minute.
was
Wait,
all prepared to talk about flex schedules. So
well, flex schedules might be a part of it.
No, you're
Part
right.
of it.
You're right. Let me talk to that. You know, you guys know that I'm very much involved in working with a very large organization. And one of the things that I've noticed is they just recently, over COVID, gone to a flex schedule. And for those of you that don't know, it's not just you can start at 9 or you can start at 10. They have choices of you can work 4 10s, which is 4 10-hour days and take Friday off. You can work 9-hour days and take every other Friday off. There's choices now because Richard, it does go back to being flexible overall. I think that organizations are starting finally to pay attention to the lifestyle of their employees and giving them some choices. I think that's here to stay. On the other hand, it's an 8,000 person organization, and only in the last 2 years have they started what they call teleworking, giving them computers. I should mention it's a government agency, so they are incredibly confidential and classified information. But those who don't deal with that, for example, HR, they're working from home and they are not going back, and nor does the company want them back. The funny thing was, I'll just finish with saying, yesterday, the VP of HR said to me, we love it mostly because now we can get a parking spot.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
So
there's so much.
So this whole argument of flexibility and work schedules and all that, we are living in an economy where moving more away from full-time employees and more towards the contractor model.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest distinctions from a government standpoint as to whether or not you're classified as a contractor versus a full-time employee is, do you dictate the work terms?
Yeah.
So are you forced to work these hours? Are you forced to use this vendor or this supplier? Are you, all that kind of stuff? And there are definitely perks to both. There are perks and drawbacks to having full-time employees and having the contractor model. But what a lot of people are doing is they're trying to kind of have the best of both worlds. from an employer standpoint. And that's something that's really not fair. I think that when we get down to it, the core of business is about the productivity and the results and less about the process to get there. So ideally, if you're designing my website, Jeff, and you're working at 2 a.m. in your boxer shorts, but you roll into the office at noon.
I can't even unsee that now. Yeah.
Yes, so you can't unsee it. But I should not care.
Right.
But for some reason, whether it's ego or tradition or
I think it's a need for control. I think it's a need for control.
Right. We shouldn't care. If you're doing a kick-ass website, do the website. I don't care how you do it. Get it done. Now, that's a good chunk of workers. For a lot of frontline people, retail kind of jobs or delivery
manufacturing,
jobs,
healthcare, all kinds of jobs where that doesn't apply.
I get it. You have to be there. But when we get into these other, where there's more flexibility, I think we need to get more away from, well, what is the rule, and get to what's the high level? The high level is get your freaking job done. And if you need to be around people and socialize and shoot shtick at the water cooler, then come into the office. But if you get your stuff done and you're people phobic, then stay home. Just get your stuff done. Let's look at the results and the bottom, and not the bottom line as much as the big picture and the end result and what you're trying to achieve, more so than how you have to do it.
Yeah. So the question is, are you looking for activity or results? Are you looking for attendance or output?
Let me tell you though, there are some other outcomes that we're not even mentioning. The National Institute of Health here in the States, NIH, they did a study on flex schedules, and I think that what they found was it increased, decreased job stress 20% and increased job satisfaction by up to 60%. So something's working.
And those two factors, job stress or job satisfaction, and what would you say the other one was?
Stress and job satisfaction.
Stress and job satisfaction. They are directly related to turnover. And we know that turnover is extremely costly. Yeah. So if you're as an employer going, well, they need to be in the office because we're paying them to be here, but you're paying for unproductivity and you're paying to make them miserable and they leave, then you have to replace those people. It's financially it's a very poor
bad decision.
It's a very bad decision.
So what do we do about those organizations that cannot offer the option for people to work from home?
We beat
Are
them.
they still subject to this wish for flexibility? What do you think?
Absolutely. And I think that they can absolutely be flexible internally and change a lot of things. Another organization that I work with, they just implemented a very large organization. I just spoke for their annual conference, but they implemented a mentoring program, just something new, right? Where mid-level management would be assigned a mentor, an executive mentor for career development, and how it's changed their attitude. I mean, there's so much, and I know if Mike was here, he'd be right on top of this, because there's so much they can do internally and still be, flexible. So
yeah, and it goes to what you were saying too earlier, Richard. It's not only flex schedules; it's really a flexible mindset.
Yeah.
If this machine goes down, do you have to stop the operation? Or if this person doesn't show up, can we do a workaround? And that's about being.
And I think when we practice that, then we get good at being flexible in other things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah.
So
I like Frederick's comment. Frederick's comment. It's not working for everybody. So the 9 to 5, about 60% of the organization is on critical shift work. So they're discussing it. A lot of companies are discussing it. You got to jump in and do something.
And why do you think they're discussing it? I think that only can happen if they think that it is in their interest to discuss it, and it is not in their interest not to discuss it.
Yeah.
So by the way, I just worry because I'm a math guy. If 60% is critical shift, that means 40% are not. So you still have that opportunity. There is some room for flex. And we go to Carol's comment. What type of flexibility can be offered for people in jobs like we mentioned?
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff, you already mentioned one. The 4x10 is an example.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean somebody coming down.
Yeah. My sister was a nurse. She's retired now, but she was a nurse, and she worked 3 13-hour shifts a day and loved it. That
Three
worked for her.
13-hour shifts a day or
A week.
Okay.
Yeah,
A day
she was
would
a
be
really hard worker. No. Yeah. So three, and she loved that. Not me. But again, it's do what works for you. And yet you have an organization to run. So, but I think that there is a combination, and a lot of it has to do with asking people, all right, let's work on this together. Here's what we have to have covered. Now let's see how we can do this in a way that works for everybody. And I think this blends into, we've always heard this phrase work-life balance. And I'm hearing more talk along the lines of, it's just life with work as a big part of it.
Right.
But we can't really compartmentalize those things to the degree that we once were able to.
Right. And I mean, I want to say it's Scott Adams, who wrote Dilbert.
Gilbert,
Yeah. I think he was credited with saying it. He said, every model of the physical universe we've ever come up with has proven to be wrong.
Yeah.
The Earth is flat. The Earth is the center of the universe. Everything revolves around the Earth. The plum pudding model, everything's proven to be wrong. What makes us so sure? What makes us so sure we're right now?
Right.
And the answer is we're not.
Yeah.
We are wrong, 100%. But to your point about this work-life balance, it used to be you had your work life and you had your home life, and never the two shall meet.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden people are going,
reality anymore.
Balance. And now we're even going higher and going, no, it's life and work's part of it, and sports is part of it, and drinking beer with your buddies is part of it, and family's part of it. And it's, but here's the other thing too. I promise you it's going to be refined again. We don't have it right.
Yeah, right.
Because
We don't.
even if we have it right in this
Constantly evolves.
Right. Because even if we have it right in this time, we're going to be hit with another pandemic. Interest rates are going to go higher. There's going to be some environmental concern. There's going to be another political war, whatever it is. So things are constantly changing, and we need to be flexible enough to go, hey, this is working now, but it doesn't mean it's going to work in perpetuity.
Right. It's what I call workplace now, but not necessarily workplace forever. Things have constantly evolved.
Yeah.
Carol says, how do you cover if one person has a 13-hour day and that person's out sick? Someone with a different schedule has to go. That's exactly what they do. It's exactly what they did. I don't know. They managed to make it work. I think
the answer is, Carol, they have to have an economy of scale. If there is only one person working and that person calls and says you're screwed.
This was a large
But
inner city
hospital.
If
there are 10 people and one calls in, the 9 are going to cover, and they're just going to have a rougher day.
Yeah.
Right.
Richard, you and I use in answer to Carol's question, you and I know, use the same term, and that's manage up.
Yeah.
And it really is about the handoff.
Mhm.
I don't care if you're sick or not, but you should be filling in whoever it is on exactly what's happening, exactly what needs to be done, and then go to bed. But it's still an accountability
in a good
issue.
place where people can work with it. Okay.
Exactly.
So I don't know, flexibility. Have we plumbed the depths of that? I just think a lot of it has to do with, as Sanjay said, get your work done. I love this phrase. I think most managers should be worrying less about what they're doing and more about what's getting done. It sounds like a fine distinction, but that really is it. And if people can work in that flexibility and they're getting their work done. Now, what if they can't and they're not getting their work done? Well, then that's an issue for the manager to deal with. And not everyone, I think, is cut out for the kind of flexibility that most people want. But it's just the old thing about one kid on the playground acts up and then everybody loses their play period. If you have a few people who are not capable or not responsible enough to manage that kind of a schedule, don't blow it for everybody, because it's going to be, to Frederick's point, it's going to be really hard to retain staff if you say that those are the rules.
Absolutely. And don't manage to the exception.
Yeah.
I read a book years ago. It was like something that, self-published thing. It was called Bubba on Business. And that was a big takeaway for me, which was this idea of stop managing to the exception, manage to the masses and deal with the exceptions as one-offs.
Yeah.
Right. So if someone is screwing the system and cheating the system and trying to get around and circumvent, don't mess it up for everyone else. Have this rule and then go talk to that person and go, this isn't acceptable. Right. Rather than upset everyone else in the organization.
I don't mean to be presumptuous, but this falls right in with your, 10-80-10 principle, right?
Yeah.
Who are you paying attention to? So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I need a nickel residuals for you mentioning 10-80-10.
I know.
We should all
It's the
just read the
Canadian
1080
Nicholas.
we should just read the 10-80-10 principle right here, just a choral reading. Jeff, would you like to start with chapter 1? No. You have a few copies. I have a copy here too.
Me too.
You know what we did not do at the start of this episode?
Oh,
Introduce ourselves.
Introduce ourselves. Jeff, go quick. 5 seconds.
okay. Jeff Tobe, Coloring Outside the Lines, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I straddle the border.
You're right.
Right.
Sanjay.
Sanjay Nath, based out of just outside of Toronto. I am a performance and leadership author and speaker. And
Richard Haddon, Jacksonville, Florida, employee engagement and leadership and recruiting and retention. Contented cows give better milk. Okay, now we've done that. Good.
we're
Thank
so
you.
professional. We checked that off the box. We know what
That's
we're
right.
doing.
Steve has a question. Any thoughts or comments about impromptu meetings, idea exchange, workplace socialization, etc.? I do have some ideas, but I don't want to hog the conversation.
Go, you read it. You speak it. Go.
Okay, yeah.
Go, girl.
Steve, I think that I believe strongly in something I call the spirit of the hive. It's hard to measure, but it's easy to observe. And it's just that what you're talking about there is the impromptu meetings, the idea exchange, the workplace socialization, and so forth. I believe that can be achieved in other than a 5-day a week, 8 to 9 or 10 hour a day in the office setting. And so I'm a big believer in the hybrid setting. I've seen it in my own family with both my wife and my daughter in that kind of a situation. They like that a lot. They get the spirit of the hive, but they also get the time to work at home. So I think that can be done. And I also know in organizations that are completely virtual that if they put extra effort and attention on those things, those kind of things can happen, and they happen organically.
Yeah. Yeah, you bring up something else too, and that is my daughter works for an organization that has unlimited vacation.
Yeah.
And when I heard that,
I think mine does too, from the looks of her Facebook feed. Yeah.
But I'm thinking, seriously? And she's been there now 5 years, and it has never been abused. Like, what is it with that? Is that the generation, or because I'm thinking, 6 months off, 6 months on would be kind of nice. So.
But again, I think that it's a matter of who you're recruiting, right? Because and the culture in which you set.
Yeah.
So if people don't abuse it, and that's lack of abuse begets lack of abuse, and abuse begets more abuse. To the idea to comment on what Steve is asking, I think that's the whole argument around why we need to be in person. We need in person because that's what we get is that meaning, idea exchange, that impromptu, it's that water cooler talk. And we're an organization, we need that, and that increases job satisfaction and lower stress level and reduces turnover. And this is why people want that. I think though that there are other ways in which we can get it. So for example, I'm sure anyone with kids knows what this is.
Did you just leave? Oh.
Yes, I did.
I know what that is from being at your house.
Exactly. So this is an Oculus, which is like a virtual reality thing. And my kid plays a game called Gorilla Tag. My 10-year-old loves it. And really what they do is with their arms, they have to like do this action where they move around and they play tag with other kids live on that thing. And it's very funny because the first few days, all my kids were like, oh, my arms are so sore. They're actually getting exercise. It's kind of cool. I guess what I'm getting at is there are times where they'll actually meet people and have real conversation because they've set an environment or a culture that, promotes that. And I think that's the biggest argument that I think that holds legit validity is people say we need to meet in person because our best ideas are generated that way, because, there's relationships that are formed, because we form this synergy and all that. And I think that's what we want to do. But because of technology and crazy things like this, we can still have those impromptu conversations. We've all gone down the rabbit hole, the internet rabbit hole, where we're looking at something and we end up 6 hours later, we've looked at all these YouTube videos, we've, whatever that speck on our arm was, and we now are being a hypochondriac, have discovered all this stuff. And really that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to create those potentials for those rabbit holes for us to crawl down and form these experiences with one another. And I think that's the hugest value in meeting in person, but a lot of technology is allowing us to do that from not being in person.
Yeah. I want to say one last thing on that, and then we're going to move on to a different little subtopic. and I don't want anyone to take this wrong, but if the success of your business depends on those conversations at the water cooler, whatever, I mean, which is such an antiquated concept, but I think we know what that means. I think you've got more trouble than anything. Those things can definitely be valuable, but if that's what if you're going to make your whole work model based on the chance meeting in the elevator or at the water fountain or in the break room or whatever, then I'm not sure that's the best way to proceed.
Yeah.
Okay. Jeff, what were you going to say?
No, nothing.
I know you well enough.
I was going to be a smart aleck, and I thought, no, I better not. So
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's no place for that here.
Let's talk about that. And from time to time, there are phrases and words and concepts that come into our vernacular, certainly in the workplace, that they've always existed, but we didn't have a name for them. One of those things was employee engagement, which has always existed, but we gave it a name about 15 years ago. Another one of these things that we're hearing a lot about now is psychological safety. And we've had an expert on psychological safety on this very vodcast, Robert Grossman. And but Jeff, what are you hearing out there?
So again, working with some large organizations, I'm a little skeptical now, and I got to give our friend Robert a call sometime and talk about this. Just so everybody knows, psychological safety is just that. How would you describe it? A sense of confidence that nobody, of no retribution for, saying something stupid, doing something
that you mean.
stupid.
Yeah, it
Right.
encourages transparency and honesty, and I think that's the way that our friend Robert approaches it.
Yeah. What I'm seeing in large organizations, though, is there's this. It tends to shield people, I guess, from accountability. It's an excuse, right? You can't criticize me for not contributing, because that wouldn't be a psychological safety zone. Don't forget, we have and so it's become an excuse for poor performance. And I'm a little concerned. I don't think that that's a huge number of people, but I think that I could see a trend or a trending that way. It's almost like, and this is using your quote, Sanjay, singing Kumbaya, right? At the water cooler. I mean, it's almost like we can do no wrong, so let it hang out. I don't know, something rubs me the wrong way, and I get it. I think it's incredibly important to create that place where people feel comfortable contributing, but there's also, I think, a fine line there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like many things. It's like what we talked about in the last segment: free, unlimited vacation. It can be abused.
Yeah.
And we have a tendency to do this. We go from one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
There's no question about it that there was a psychological safety issue. You had, you weren't considered to be a good boss unless you yelled at your employees. Like it was about showing them who's the man, who's the woman, power, control, have them under your thumbnail. I was actually worked with an organization, and people who was the guy was running this particular plant. He was told, he told us, he would brag to his compadres. He would wake up in the morning and go, who am I going to get in a fight with today? Like, I mean, that was the environment in which it was grown. It was a very autocratic 1960s style of leadership. And so we were there, and a lot of organizations are still there. And so the woke crowd, the more up to date, are now saying, hey, that's not cool, which 100% agree with. But like most things, we go from one extreme of stupidity to the other extreme, and then the pendulum eventually finds the middle. And so unfortunately, we almost need to go through that. It's like when you tell some people, don't touch it, it's hot. That's enough for some people. Other people have to touch it and go, oh yeah, you're right, that's hot. Can you take me to the hospital? And unfortunately, until people kind of go through that experiential experience, they have to touch it and they have to abuse it. And then for people to go, wait a minute, maybe there's something in between here. So you're just getting it firsthand.
Yeah. I'm not going to read Frederick's comment, but he just taught a class yesterday on psychological safety. So,
well, and I think his point is it's about trust, and,
right.
and that's what psychological safety is.
That's a positive. That's certainly a positive part of it.
So I hate to tie back to that old stuff, but is trust? Do you think is there a decrease in trust when we're teleworking, when we're not in the office? Or Richard, what have you seen?
I think you have to work harder at it. I think communication is not as it's not as easy. It's not something that we're used to. We're used to the in the office model of
Right.
communication and trust and so forth, and so it's a new thing that we have to practice and get better at. I
Yeah.
always tell people when it comes to communication, we have to turn up both the volume and the frequency
Right.
on it. You know, we have to just be clearer and be have more frequent conversations, and the same thing with trust. I think there
Right.
clearly is the opportunity. There's a potential for trust to suffer when we don't have those times when we can be with each other. But I think we're learning to build trust even in the absence of that.
Yeah, but I think it has. I think trust. I teach a workshop on trust, and I think that part of it has to do with body language. It's not
Yeah.
just the words they say. It's about
Yeah.
their body language. And truly, and I'm not being tongue in cheek, saying it tongue in cheek, with so many people not turning on their cameras,
Yeah.
it's tough. It's tough to build that. To maintain that trust.
I think
that maybe they have.
I think it goes beyond that too. I think actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
So for example, if I tell you I'm getting you the report on Monday and you get it Wednesday, whether we're doing that virtually or in person, that erodes trust.
Right.
So if you can back up with what you're saying and be legit, like even if you have your significant other or your brother or whatever, and they're on the other part of the country, you still trust them, even though you don't see them. So you
Yeah.
can build up trust and you can still interact in a trustful manner. But it's also very easy to erode virtually or in person.
Right.
And I believe that that's what it comes down to is the trust to say what you think and not feel vulnerable for it. So like, for example, and we've talked about this in the past, I believe that healthy conflict is such an important part of trust. If I can say, hey, Jeff, I hate your sweater. Now timing and style, yeah, exactly.
No, please.
There you go. Timing and approach are critical, right? So I have to do it at the right time, and I have to use the right words for that person, because if the relationship Jeff and I have, I could actually say to him, Jeff, I hate your sweater, and he's not going to take offense to that. Now, if we had a different relationship, I might have to say, hey, Jeff, you know what? Maybe this would be a more appropriate sweater for you to wear to work. We can have that conversation.
And yet, how much time have the two of you spent breathing the same air in the last 3 years? A little bit.
Not much. Yeah,
But not
once or
much.
twice.
Same as with Sanjay and me a few weeks ago. But our relationship is not now based on being with each other a lot.
No, but it's based on history, and
Sure,
so
there is history there.
if you have history with somebody in the office, that's okay.
Yeah.
But if you don't, it's tougher to build trust.
Well, do you trust Santa Claus?
Yeah, that's a whole other
Now,
story.
here's something, and I don't know, it might be a little controversial, but I heard this said that when it comes to that, people who have lost a sense, who have lost the ability to see or lost the ability to hear, the rest of their brain picks up where they, in other words, if you can't see, you hear a different way. If you can't hear, you see things that maybe the rest of us wouldn't see. And the question was asked, and we don't know yet because we haven't been at this long enough, but I wonder if when that becomes normalized, that we're not seeing each other all the time, if we might be able to pick up on cues even without that. I don't know, but it's an interesting thing to think
Absolutely. I mean, Jeff already pointed one out. When you turn your camera off,
Yeah.
I feel it erodes trust, right? It doesn't mean these cues are necessarily right, but people are going to, in the absence of being physically with one another, we're going to pick up cues and we're going to make inferences based on that. That's human behavior.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue to do that until we have something smack us in the side of the head that says, nope, that trajectory is wrong.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with psychological safety. We will treat people like dirt until we get hit in the side of the head, and then we will, we will get taken advantage of. And then eventually we'll find this equilibrium in the middle.
Can I point out that it took 30 minutes? I am shocked. 30 minutes for somebody to mention GBT. So
Leave it to Jerry. Jerry would
and it
do
was
that.
Jerry. So
Jerry.
I'm going to defer, because I do want to tease people and say that one of our shows in March, we actually have a guest who's going to talk specifically about the ethics and mostly the ethics of specifically GPT. But if you don't know what it is, just put it into a browser And you'll
and-
And it
by
will
the
tell
way-
you. Nobody will have written it, but it will tell you.
right.
That's what it is.
Yes.
It is
Let's
artificial.
not get off topic. I just wanted to throw
It
that
is
in.
a form of,
Well, no, it is.
but no, I'm glad you brought that up, because we have some great guests coming up. You're going to talk about 2 weeks from now at the end of the episode today.
We already mentioned we're having somebody come and chat about ethics, and the reason we had to have a guest. Let's insert the obvious joke here. We didn't have enough ethics between us to be able to talk about it. So
Oh, I thought you were going to say we didn't have enough intelligence between us. We had to bring in some artificial. Yeah.
there you
Okay.
go.
I'm going to write my comments for that show. I'm going to go into Chat GPT and just
Just
put
tell it
in
what you
comments
want.
for a vlog and see on culture.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm hearing now, and I think it may have some generational element to it, but I don't want to give that too much credit, but is a real emphasis on employee development, on development in the workplace today. And I love to talk about that because so often in the past, when we talk about development, our mind immediately goes to, okay, this is development so that I can get a promotion. And what I'm hearing is that, number one, there's not always a lot of promotions available, especially in smaller organizations. But I'm hearing employees are saying, no, that's not even the whole reason. I mean, yeah, I would love to get a promotion and get more money. But listen, if I'm looking at two employers and one of them is going to help me to gain a new skill, to gain some new perspective, to be more valuable to the workforce in general, I'm going to have more loyalty to them than one who doesn't do that.
Yeah.
And that even gets into, and again, I don't know exactly how I feel about all of this, but this is even about skills and things that are not necessarily work related. And
Perfect.
so I wonder what is my whole thing right now is helping people understand, how can we retain, we've got good talent now, how do we retain them a little bit longer maybe than the average UK prime minister? How do we do that? And I think development offers one answer to that.
I think it offers a huge answer. As you guys know, you just fed into what I've been doing. I keep mentioning this large organization I'm doing so much work with. And what I'm doing is, you guys know, I'm creating an internal university. And because they've never had it, they have great training for their middle managers. They have great training for their executives, and then basically nothing for the rest of the organization.
Wow.
They encourage people to further their education, and they'll even pay for part of it. But that's not what it's about. I think it's about those simple things. And if I can, be self-centered enough for all three of us, it's those things that we do on a daily basis that they're not exposed to. I'm amazed, yes, it's Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, make all the jokes you want, but the majority of these people,
I love Pittsburgh.
I know, but don't forget, we're talking about 8,000. Well, there's a joke. When the world ends, you want to be in Pittsburgh because it'll take a year to get here.
Right.
So the majority of these people have, and it's not a comment on the organizations, they've just never really been exposed to what I call world thought leaders in different areas.
Yeah.
And now, because of technology and everything else, they have that opportunity. The fact that this organization, I give them credit, is literally, investing a lot of money into developing what's actually called an internal academy. I think it's incredible, and it's going to offer, at first it's going to roll out with 30 different courses that these people can take. And it's not just development. Sorry, you got me going, but it's not just development, but it's considering the way that people learn. So it might be a topic, Richard, employee engagement. But when you go into employee engagement, there are 4 choices. 1, you can take a 3-hour online, self-paced course. 2, you can listen to Richard Haddon do a 1-hour webinar on the topic. Or you can—
That would be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you can actually participate 3 times a year in a virtual live, presentation by a world thought leader. So I'm just saying there's so much involved when you say development.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited about. I've changed my mindset.
I can tell, yeah.
Yeah, I really have, because I just think that there's so many opportunities in organizations for this.
Yeah.
And that's
an example. You want me to go, or you want me to interrupt you?
Before beauty.
Okay, thank you. How about both? So just an example, an organization knew that they had a number of people in the company who English was not their first language, and they spoke English, but it wasn't their first language, and they weren't as comfortable, even though their job it wasn't a huge communication or verbal kind of thing. And they began offering English as a second language, and they had several different languages represented. And so, when you teach English as a second language, it's not based on the mother tongue. And they found that people they wouldn't ever leave this company, because here they helped them with something that could help them outside and in their lives and with their families, and to meet people and all of that. And, people would say, well, it's not exactly work related, but it helps to make a more well-rounded person. If I'm running a big company, I want well-rounded, well-educated people with a lot of different perspectives. I want curious people in my organization.
Let me just say,
I know that's where development can help.
Sanjay's I'm sorry, I'm jumping in, but it's not just well-educated. I think well-rounded is a better word, because the organization I'm working with, 90% of them are engineers and PhDs, scientists.
Well, they're educated in one very specific area, but well-rounded. Expose them to a variety of different perspectives.
Don't let school get in the way of your education. They're formally educated, doesn't mean they actually are educated. They have a degree. Doesn't necessarily. Some of the biggest idiots I've met have fancy degrees. Some of the most brilliant people don't have formal education.
How many degrees do you have, Sanjay? No, I'm just
kidding. I only have 3. Wait a minute.
Yeah,
I see where you're going with that. A few things. One, I mean, the idea of developing and we've said, job enrichment. It's not only specifically for the job. If you're a welder,
it's for life.
Only send you to welding classes. It's about wellness. It's about nutrition. It's about education. It's about communication. It's about family. Because we know, as a being, if I can keep you healthy not just in a physical sense, but in a mental sense as well, you are a better employee. So I'm saying that from the business case, that if an employer goes, well, why would I waste money on that? You're not wasting money on it. You're investing money in it, and you will actually get the return for it. And you get, again, lower turnover. You get a more productive employee. Like, there's a bunch of reasons for it. And you guys I'm very familiar with the old cliche. The employer that says, well, why would I train my people? They'll just leave. And the response is, well, the worst case scenario is you don't train them and they stay, right? So the idea of people appreciate the benefit of it. And just like some of these other benefits, like health and dental and prescription drugs, this is just another benefit. And I don't know, I know a ton of people who have access to acupuncture, but very few people actually use it. So just because you have access to the benefit doesn't necessarily mean it is a benefit. Whereas something like development, especially if it's enriching their job or it's enriching their lives, and it's done in an interactive, fun way to what's important to them, to your point, Jeff, whether it's give it to me in one shot, give it to me 4 times over the year, whatever it is. So I'm looking at the different learning style and it resonates with me. I mean, it's one of the best things you can offer. If you want to increase your cohesion with your team, you want to improve the organizational culture, you want to reduce the turnover, this is one of the most effective ways, and actually, depending on how you do it, one of the most cost-effective ways of doing it.
Yeah, and you bring up 2 good points. One, you brought up a good point, but Linda, I love what she's saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I hadn't even thought of that, right? Give them time to do this, but I've completely lost my train of thought. So help me, guys. So,
I was hoping.
Well, if you want to improve your organization, you do that by improving at some level. I'm not saying your people are deficient, but you do that at some level by improving your people, by improving what they're able to do, what they can do, by providing them with positive perspectives and information and the ability to make decisions that are going to help your company.
Yeah, and I want to be clear that it's professional development. It's not technical training. Yeah. A lot of organizations use that as an excuse. We train the heck out of our people, right? Yeah, but that's what I call technical, how to do their job, or safety, or security, whatever it is. But that's not professional development. It's those opportunities. I define it kind of as those opportunities outside of what they normally do to gain skills that will help them in their career down the road. So, and we also have to define.
That was
But you
that
also-
was unusually well put for you, Jeff.
Thank you.
I like that.
As a result, I was hoping that you guys would be interested in this development program called "How to Be Nice to a Guy's Name That Rhymes with Bunjay."
Yeah,
on the
okay.
podcast. So I was hoping you guys would be interested in.
Sometimes it can be very niche like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fair.
We'll take that course. But I just want to bring up one more point, and that is there's also a distinction between professional development and personal development.
Mhm, mhm.
So this
But do you
example
think
you
personal
use,
development is valuable at work?
yeah, but you use the example of speech reduction or accent reduction or something. What you were saying.
English is a second language.
Okay, I'm sorry. Whatever it was, yeah.
In
I
the
would call
South
it-
here, we do have accent reduction classes,
Right.
but I've never taken one, as you can obviously tell.
Yeah, you guys speak like Americans.
Yeah. I would anyway, I would call that personal development. And,
Yeah.
and I'm only making a distinction because there is one. Otherwise, I think we have to offer a combination of both.
Yeah.
You know, you're offering a how to reduce stress in the workplace. Is that personal or professional? So it's kind of they go together.
I just said it's about making a better person.
Well,
Not
you
that there's
remember,
anything wrong with the person, but about making a better person, and better people make better organizations.
Yeah.
when we hire the whole person.
Yeah.
Only hire their engineering skills.
Yeah.
Right?
Let me ask
If
something
they have
quick.
an anger management problem, that is our issue as well.
I just want to ask for everybody listening, put in the chat box the last professional development course you took because work offered it to you. Just what was it called? Anyway, sorry, I interrupted.
And it will not rhyme with Sanjay.
Yeah,
We have we're going to look at that in just a minute. So there was DISC certification.
right.
Mallory says it was 2 years ago. That's not
Wow.
I'm sure Mallory would say that was not recently enough. Conducting investigations.
But we do not want to mess with Linda. I'm
No,
just
do
telling
not.
you.
Email
I don't even know what
manage-
she does. But
I love it. Yeah.
and Frederick's already put us into boxes, in disc. So
That's right.
Full disclosure.
Stand-up
I'm-
comedian.
see
Oh,
my-
Jerry, I want to hear some of your material.
yeah.
While those are coming in, Jeff, why don't you tell us about who we can look forward to seeing 2 weeks from today, which would be 8 plus 14. Is
23.
that
that would be the 23rd,
the 20
22nd.
no,
And
22nd?
The Richard
22nd.
Nixon.
can I just say that I will just have returned the night before from Maui. So, I'm sorry, guys, but I will be
I will
there.
have just returned from some place in the middle of Kansas, but that's okay.
You're gonna
Anyway,
be in Kansas? Wait a minute, Richard, are you in Kansas? I'm in Kansas on the 21st.
okay.
Let's
22nd.
talk. We'll talk.
Guys,
Seriously.
I'm very excited to announce that Bonnie Artman Fox is joining us on February the 22nd. Bonnie is an expert in workplace conflict and specifically on abrasive bosses. I mean, this is a niche, I'm telling you, that she's developed.
So invite all
And
of your abrasive bosses to be with us.
Here's the sad part. She's really busy. So, right? So,
No, hold on,
so
just to
we have-
clarify, this is teaching people how to be abrasive and
Yes.
increase conflict, right?
exactly,
Okay.
especially if you're a boss.
I thought you had that market, Sanjay.
The point I'm trying to make is that I have tried to book Bonnie for almost a year and been unable to because of her schedule. So I'm very excited to have her. And the March guest will be a mystery until a few weeks from now. So
Until we have confirmation.
yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, I want to mention just a blatant promotion.
Plug.
We are available for weddings and bar mitzvahs and everything else. No, we are available as a group, truly to enhance an online meeting, to inspire discussion, and maybe take a look at things in your organization from a different perspective. So,
Or even an in-person meeting.
yeah, that too. Please keep us in mind. So,
Okay, everybody, our time is up. Unfortunately, it's the fastest, almost the funnest 45 minutes of my of my fortnight. The fastest 45 minutes of my fortnight. How was that for alliteration? Okay, so we will see you on, what is the date? February
22nd.
22nd.
yes. Same
Right?
time, same
Okay.
place.
And other than that, we'll see you every other Wednesday.
Thanks,
Bye,
folks.
everyone.